My name is Raymond Halpern, but everyone calls me Ray. I'm 62 and I live in Lakewood, a couple of blocks from Lake Erie, in a brick house with a slate roof and a dry basement that smells like clean tools. I was at the tail end of Sunday lunch when the word hit me like a punch to the diaphragm. Senile. It was my son-in-law who said it. His name is Trevor Lynn, the salesman type who uses words like synergy and pipeline, even to talk about coffee. He raised his iPhone in a shiny case, smile locked in place, and dropped another word he loves: transparency. I caught the window reflected in the lens, and before he could stage the whole scene in my kitchen, I opened the entryway drawer, grabbed my little Sony recorder, and slipped it into my shirt pocket. I come from railroads. 30-some years as a signal electrician taught me two religions: redundancy and the right stamp in the right box. A bad signal kills. Records save lives. "You're gonna record?" he asked, as if I'd broken some etiquette rule in his little theater. "You started," I said. "Now we both play fair." He smiled with too many teeth. My daughter Jenna was drying a plate, trying to be a bridge between two rivers in flood. "Dad, it's just to keep a record," she said gently. "We want what's best for you." "Then stop calling hurry care," I said without raising my voice. "Care doesn't come with a broker and a commission." Trevor pulled out a plastic folder. It came with a durable power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, a listing agreement with a local realtor, and my name already typed in Times New Roman. The toner smell was stronger than the garlic from the sausage I'd fried. He turned the iPhone toward me again. "Ray, we're worried. You mixed up dates, you paid the gas bill twice. Because the company messed up and I asked for a credit," I said. "And because a railroad man's memory isn't for show, it's so nobody dies." I was reaching for the dish towel to brush away crumbs when the blow landed, flat and almost casual. "Just sign," Trevor said, no smile now. "Then we say you can't make decisions anymore. I already have video showing you as senile. That helps the judge. Remember that line? It tied everything else together." "What judge?" I asked. "The probate judge, Callahan. The hearing is Wednesday morning. Better to cooperate." Jenna tried to touch my arm and pulled back when I just lifted my hand. "Easy." I didn't shout, didn't slam a door, didn't smash an iPhone. I took a breath and kept my voice flat as track. "Get out of my house." They left, and the house settled into the hush of a church after Mass. If you think this was just a Sunday spat, stick with me. What I did in the hours that followed is something a lot of folks my age need to hear. The show he staged to humiliate me turned into proof that saved me. If you have a father, a mother, an uncle, a neighbor, anyone who's heard senile used like a sentence, stay with me. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how a voice recorder, a doctor who fills out the right form, and a couple of neighbors turned theater into justice. And yes, I played the audio in court. And yes, the judge heard every word. I hate sounding like a report, so let's start with smell and texture. I'm calloused hands, grease under the nails on a Saturday, coffee run through the stainless percolator my wife, Marlene, swore by. She left too soon, at the end of an autumn that still aches. When the lake wind comes through the kitchen window, I can tell its direction just from the hum it puts in the old glass. My place is a long, low bungalow, a hallway that's creaked in the same spot since we redid the floors, a leather couch that catches the morning sun and hugs you in the afternoon. On the entry shelf, there's a picture of Marlene at Edgewater Park, her smile like a lighthouse, and next to it, my black Sony with the red button scuffed down. In the back workshop, behind the door, sits the Craftsman toolbox that was my dad's. Allen keys in order, sockets lined up like a platoon. Electrical tape I pick up whenever I see it on sale. My Crown Vic sleeps in the garage and purrs quiet. I get my eyes checked every year with Dr. Levine. I wear hearing aids the size of a grain of rice. I'm not some TV grandpa. I'm a man who learned to listen. On the railroad, hearing a click a second early saves the day. Jenna, my girl, came from Marlene. She's sweet as Sunday cornbread, a worker, the kind of heart that'll give you her coat in the cold and go without. Trevor showed up later, at a courtyard party at her place in Ohio City. He brought wine labeled reserve and buzzwords that change with the seasons. I'm not against people who sell. I just don't like folks who think selling outranks respect. In the years that followed, I was the guy who lent the truck for Jenna's move, who lowered the washer through that cellar hatch with Dave, my neighbor from 312 on a freezing Saturday, and who called the plumber when the heater threatened to leave us wearing scarves indoors. I reached into my own pocket when it came up short, and when there was a little extra, I bought nicer meat for the chili. I kept receipts, marked the date, noted the number, because my way of loving is making sure neither a screw nor the bread runs out. When Marlene was gone, the house had a hole where her voice used to be. I learned to fill it with routine. Early walks in Lakewood Park with Mrs. Sheridan, a teacher's widow, who walks with me, talks about the grandkids, and laughs at my dumb goose jokes. Strong coffee, newspaper folded neat, a list in my pocket, and the rule that's always saved me: measure twice, cut once. I've always been the guy who signs only after he understands. I didn't change at 62, but some folks see gray hair and smell opportunity. Some confuse kindness with access. Some call control care. And on a cold, windy Sunday when I put pierogi with caramelized onions on the table and kept the Guardians low on the TV, those folks walked into my kitchen with a plastic folder and mistook my ears for an audience. "The stairs aren't safe," Trevor said. "Lakewood's hot. I've got an agent who can list your house tomorrow. Downsize. It's time." "Time for who?" I asked. "For the people who love you," he said. And that's when he pointed at my gray hair, smirked with one corner of his mouth, and used the forbidden word. Jenna lowered her face, and for a second, I saw her as the girl she was at 9, skinned knees and the smell of rain, apologizing for something she didn't do. I didn't hit Trevor. Nothing to be won there. I just picked up my Sony the way I grab my favorite screwdriver when a stripped screw tries me, and I hit record. Little did I know that 2 days later, in a room with gray carpet and an American flag, I'd press that same button at the judge's table. Little did I know somebody would squirm in their chair from the discomfort. Little did I know that week, the word senile would lose its teeth. Their play wasn't just a word. It was a breadcrumb trail of little shoves that, added up, turned into a fall. When Trevor opened the folder, there were numbers that glittered like bait. A staging fee a little over $2,800 and change. Deep cleaning for about $1,280, give or take. A digital campaign priced just under $1,500, because sales guys love those 99s at the end. A discounted commission of 5% that, on the house at the corner, came out to about $7,200, and that was with luck. There was even an advisory fee of $257 a pop for each visit from the agent, and all of it already had my name typed in. Like somebody drew a treasure map in my backyard and forgot to tell me I'd be the one holding the shovel. "It's for your own good, Ray," he said. "You get mixed up. Look here." And he lifted the iPhone with a clip of me repeating, "What paper is this?" and mixing up Tuesday with Thursday. "This right here is real confusion." I said, "What paper is this?" because you brought 5 documents with my name already filled in. And I mixed up the day because Dr. Levine's secretary rescheduled my appointment. I said, "It's life that changes, not my brain." "We've already filed for emergency guardianship," he dropped, like a guy whose year-end bonus depends on it. "Guardianship? I'm not against the law. Guardianship exists to save folks who can't save themselves, but there are people who use the law as scenery for an old trick. And here comes one of those micro-humiliations that alone passes. Together, they sting." The week before, Trevor texted offering to help organize my bills. I replied, "Don't need it," and he sent a thumbs-up emoji and a link to a finance app that, when I clicked, asked for access to my bank. I closed it. 5 minutes later, the bank called to confirm a change to my mailing address. I said no. The next day, my access to the utility portal got cut for excessive password attempts. I hadn't changed any password. The reconnection fee? Just under $30. Small. But add those 30 to a 99 here, 112 there, a duplicated bill that racks up interest. In less than 2 weeks, it was $300 and change, plus the hours you lose listening to hold music. That's time stolen from a life. And every little oops was followed by a question from Jenna, always worried. Dad, do you need help? I need you to respect my answer. And another one. Trevor scheduled a meeting with a senior transition specialist without asking me. The guy showed up in a blue polo with a stitched logo, a plate of cookies in one hand and a rate sheet in the other, with emotional letting go for $457, memory curation for $682, and an auction partner taking 15%. I listened for half an hour and nearly handed him my Veterans Club card to say, "Here, teach respect at your workshop." "The stairs are dangerous," Trevor kept repeating. "You could fall. You could hit the brakes." I kept answering. "You could ask what I want. The last straw. Just sign so I can say you can't decide for yourself anymore." He said say with the ease of someone posting a dog photo. And then, "I already have video." Jenna flinched when she heard it, and I felt that frontline anger. The kind you get when the guy behind you tries to cut through over the ones who bleed. I turned off the burner, turned off the TV, turned off the urge to say what people say when nobody's recording. And I turned on something else. The old method. The list. The moleskin. 4 items. Lawyer, doctor, evidence, witnesses. Little did I know that while I was writing in the notebook, Trevor was already calling his realtor and his lawyer. Little did I know that on his LinkedIn, the word guardianship would show up as a case study 2 days later. Little did I know that what hurt in me would turn into ammo for me. The good thing about being a railroad man is, if the signal's wrong, you stop the train, you check the map, and you follow procedure. That's exactly what I did. Next morning, I was up before the sun. I do that when I need to remember who I am. I walked with Mrs. Sheridan in the park. The lake wind tapped my cheek. I caught the smell of wet grass and bread from a bakery that opens early. We counted steps, talked geese, talked the world, and didn't talk Trevor. And suddenly, I knew what to do. I called a lawyer, Al, a railroad buddy, had already recommended Paula Vega. I laid out in quick lines what had eaten an entire afternoon. She didn't do polite mm-hms. She asked the right questions, requested the right documents, and said the line that straightened my spine. Bring me everything. Audio, your doctor's note, camera clips, the letters you've got, and your people's names. By your people, she meant my neighbors. This kind of thing we solve with paperwork and a clock. I stopped by Dr. Levine's office and asked for a copy of my last cognitive test. 30 questions. I'd done it at the start of the year. I scored 28 out of 30. Better than plenty of CEOs manage after their third coffee. I took it. I asked for a simple note. Capable of understanding and making decisions. He gave it to me. No fluff. I went to KeyBank and printed statements from the last few months. Bills paid, no late fees, the duplicate gas charge I'd caught credited back. I pulled the ring clips for the week. Not because I owe proof that I don't wander, but because evidence is what you collect when the other side invents a story with chopped up video. And yes, I had the full audio. I asked my nephew Aaron to convert it into a neat file. Even a courthouse computer could read. I lined up 2 witnesses. Dave from 312, the guy who helps me wrangle the mower, who knows the basement ramp stays open because we roll the Toro down it, not because I'm lost, and Mrs. Sheridan from the park. Dave wrote 2 tidy pages. Mrs. Sheridan speaks better than she writes, so I had her sign a simple statement and it came out perfect. By late afternoon, I had a red binder. I split it with tabs, medical, bills, cameras, witnesses, audio. I didn't label them Exhibit A, B, C like a courtroom drama. I wrote, "What proves I'm me," and I smiled to myself. I wasn't gearing up for a fight. I was doing the other thing, getting ready, different. On Tuesday, Paula called to say Trevor's lawyer had attached a 3-minute mashup of my confusion. I breathed. I knew they would. When a pitch doesn't land, a salesman cuts, edits, speeds it up until you don't recognize your own face. But there's one thing a short clip can't handle: context. And I had context stored on one button. "Wednesday morning," she said. "We're going to ask to play it." That night I dusted off the suit from Jenna's wedding. It still fit. I just needed the belt 1 notch tighter. I touched Marlene's photo, said, "Lend me your calm." I locked up, slipped the Sony in my pocket, and slept the kind of sleep only someone with fear and a plan can get. Not too much, not too little. Enough to wake up with both feet under me. On Wednesday, when I walked into the courthouse, the carpet had that smell of a place where a lot of people pass through and not much noise sticks. Flag up front, a small crucifix lost on an old wall. The bailiff asked for quiet with a hand. Judge Callahan looked out over the room like someone who's seen a few hundred of the same fight and wants to know if this one brings anything new. I wasn't there to put on a show. I was there to set my recorder on the table and say, "Does this sound like the truth? Then listen." Trevor's lawyer went first. He leaned on 3 crutch words: safety, confusion, risk. He ran that 3-minute video twice, stopping where I repeat, "Which paper is this?" The way you repeat something when you're not signing with your eyes closed. The judge watched, nodded once, jotted 2 notes. I kept still, hand on my knee, no finger drumming. "Miss Vega," the judge said. Paula didn't rise with theater. She stood with a page in hand and the calm of someone who knows what she's carrying. She handed over Dr. Levine's letter, the bill list, the statements, and she said, "Your Honor, Mr. Halpern has audio from that afternoon. It's not a trick, it's the full conversation. He recorded because he was being recorded. In Ohio, a participant can lawfully record. We asked to play it." "Play it," said the judge. No drama. The speaker was basic, and I swear the little click at the start felt like music. I heard my own voice talking about the duplicate utility charge. I heard Senile with the clarity of a lighthouse. And then the line that made me bite the inside of my cheek not to laugh. "Sign this already." "Then we say you can't decide for yourself anymore. I already have video. That makes it easier for the judge." Trevor's lawyer shifted in his chair. Jenna swallowed and raised a hand to her face. The judge lifted an eyebrow, not anger, disbelief. "You also said he wanders at night?" the judge asked, flipping through the transcript. That was a figure of speech. Trevor stammered, and figure coming out of his mouth sounded like smeared ink. Paula brought Dr. Levine up on video. He spoke the way you fill a form. Clear, quick, no poetic spins. My 62-year-old head was where it belonged. Dave confirmed the ramp's open because we work down there. Mrs. Sheridan said I tell jokes and can find the bank branches by the smell of coffee. The judge breathed, closed the file, and spoke without theatrics. Petition for guardianship denied. Protective order. Mr. Lynn does not contact Mr. Halpern alone, does not present documents, does not solicit signatures for 12 months. Costs and attorney's fees, $1,500 paid by the petitioner. Counsel, tell your families, your clients, your neighborhood. Court is not a tool for family bargaining. I've never liked the thump of a rubber stamp. But that day the dry thwack on paper sounded like church bells. The story could end there. But this chapter is called Public Counterpunch for a reason. That same afternoon, someone from the neighborhood paper called. We heard about a misuse of a guardianship petition. Would you talk? I don't like hanging laundry on the line. I don't enjoy seeing anyone shamed. But some things need to become warnings. I talked for 15 minutes. No names, no boogeyman. I spoke about recording, context, and neighbors who serve as anchors when the wind kicks up. On Friday, a short piece ran in the neighborhood column. How to protect your autonomy when it's your house and your life. My name wasn't in the headline, but the people who needed it knew. That same day, with my permission, Paula forwarded the audio to Adult Protective Services. Not as a complaint about me, of course, but as training material. The supervisor replied with a simple, "Thank you." I tucked away more fondly than any party congrats. Folks who work with elders need to hear whole conversations. No cuts. And there was more. The realtor whose name appeared on that ready-to-sign contract reached out. "Your name was on the paper, Ray, but we hadn't talked. Mr. Lynn took the initiative. That's not our standard." I answered with the manners of a man who won't pick a fight with someone who didn't throw a punch. "Now you know the standard. Without my yes, there's no deal on my street." That night, the block's group chat took it up. A neighbor asked if it was true. Someone was trying to take an old man's house. I answered with 3 lines and a proposal. If someone shows up in your kitchen with a plastic folder, call me before you sign. We'll read it together. I'll bring the percolator and we'll have coffee. In 2 hours, there were 8 replies, and one of them was from the blue polo cookie guy. I'm sorry if I came off intrusive. The came off bugged me, but I accepted the gesture. Truth in public does that. It straightens wobbly chairs. On Sunday, Jenna came alone. She brought bread pudding, her mother's recipe. I opened the door and almost said, "Come in," but I did what the judge taught. I used time and words. "You're coming as my daughter," I said. "No contracts." "I'm coming as your daughter," she said. And as a learner, I was wrong. She sat, looked at my hands and said, "Dad, all that stuff Trevor did. I thought it was care. I thought you were..." She didn't say the word. I didn't want the too late syndrome. "You ask me for help when it's needed," I said, "and I ask you the same." Before she left, she pointed at the Sony on the shelf. "Can I borrow it?" "Not today," I said. "But hit rec and record your lesson. It's good for the future." She laughed, pressed the button, and said, in the voice I remember from when she was 9 and apologized for breaking the vase, "Note to the future. Don't call my dad senile. Listen before assuming. Ask before bringing forms." I didn't cry. I just kept it. I could end on a zinger. It deserves one. But railroad folks know. The trip doesn't end with the stamp. It continues with realigning the track. Grease where the friction laughed, a talk at the front gate. I changed 3 simple things. I put in a keypad lock, 2 codes, mine, and a temporary one I wipe when I don't need it anymore. I installed a small camera in the kitchen pointed at the back door, not to watch myself, to spare me from remembering alone. I reviewed my beneficiaries at the bank and, with Paula, drafted my own power of attorney. I named my nephew Aaron as primary agent, Jenna as successor, and decided anything involving bricks needs 2 signatures. Not punishment, protocol, railroad. The next week, a letter from the court arrived. The order, neatly written, and I filed it with my papers. Tucked in was a note from Paula. "Thank you for teaching with calm." I smiled and stuck a post-it on my shelf. 4 lines. "If you film me to cut me down, you'll hear the whole tape. Audio without context is a trick. With context, it's the truth. Courts like paper and a clock. Respect is a contract without a notary. If it's missing, we notarize it." Trevor? He kept his distance for a while. That's normal with people who love a stage. When the spotlight goes dark, some learn to sit in the audience and listen. Others go hunt for another theater. A month later, he ran into me in the hardware store lot. No audience, no iPhone in hand. Just a man whose hair was messier than usual. No cobalt blue jacket and a request. "Ray," he said. He looked down, and I saw he was about to say sorry, without fully believing it. "You are?" I helped. "Sorry. I accept the word," I said. "And I set rules." "Okay. You don't talk about selling my house. You don't organize anything with my name on it. You don't call me senile. If you're in doubt, you call Jenna, and she calls me. And if you want to care, you start by asking, 'What do you want?' Then I'll tell you, if I want it, you help. If I don't, you respect it." "Okay. And if someday I really need you, I'll tell you. I know how to say I need help. It's not a shameful word." He nodded. I didn't hug him, I didn't swear at him, I bought my drill bits, he bought whatever he came for, and life moved on. We're not friends. We're family by marriage. In the grown-up world, that means 2 things: boundaries and civility. Jenna came that Sunday. The chili simmered low, the cornbread browned just right, and the eerie wind sang in the cracks the way a house only sings when the people inside are at peace. She brought flowers and laughed at how my Crown Vic looks like a ship in a sea of little cars. We touched the topic, but we didn't stay there. She talked about work, I talked about the geese, and we toasted with lemonade. I lifted my glass, tapped hers, and said, "To freedom with responsibility." She repeated it like a prayer. I thought of Marlene. I thought of my father. I thought of the hammer ring of a track welder. the sound that made me a man. And I thought of the judge saying court isn't a stage. Truth said plain is good for your spine. There was one more bit of quiet karma. The realtor Trevor had roped in sent me a bottle of wine with a note apologizing for being put in the middle. I sent it back with my own note. Save it for the next sale, when it's someone who actually wants to sell. He replied with a fair enough that was worth more than a lot of signed contracts. At the park, a woman I didn't know stopped and said, "I read that note in the paper. I made my son listen." I smiled and said it wasn't about bad sons and good fathers. It was about power. It walks in wearing flip-flops, and when you notice the couch is already out of the living room. She laughed at the flip-flops, and the goose behind her honked like it got the metaphor. 6 weeks later, I sat in my shop with the socket set open. I wiped them one by one, cloth and shine, lined them up. I like sockets in order. They remind me that even things that look alike have different numbers and a proper fit. That's when I caught the biggest lesson, the one I might have missed without the word that hurt me. Respect isn't the absence of disagreement. Respect is the question that comes before every decision. Who gets to decide this? I might be a man with a hearing aid, stubborn hair, and a knee that pops. I might mix up Tuesday and Thursday when the secretary moves an appointment. I might need a hand getting on the roof to clear the gutters in late fall. But under all that is a line that's mine. If you step on it without permission, you'll hear the whole tape. The whole tape, in my case, was my story. The railroad man, the woman with the lighthouse laugh, the good-hearted daughter, the neighbor who steadies the ramp, the lady who helps count steps, the doctor who writes clear, the lawyer who talks less and does more, the judge who has no patience for theater. That's the full track. If you chop out 2 minutes and think you've got a movie, you miss the best part. On the entry shelf next to the Sony, there's now a little model of my Crown Vic my grandson gave me. The 4-line post-it is still there. Sometimes in the small hours, the eerie wind knocks, and the house answers with a low crack. I get up, take a sip of water, run my hand over the wood of the door, and go back to bed knowing something that seems small, but is worth more than $7 grand in commission. If they call me weak, I don't smash the iPhone. I press REC, and on the right morning, if I have to, I play it in court. Because the truth, once it gets its context, makes a sound that needs no choreography. It's the sound that made the judge lift an eyebrow, made the lawyer squirm, made the salesman pocket his pitch, made my daughter breathe again without that weight in her chest. It's the sound of grown-ups setting rules. And good rules in a windy house are the rope that holds the boat without scraping the hull. So if you've read this far because someone called you senile in some random kitchen, do the simple things. Keep receipts, talk to your doctor, talk to a lawyer who knows how to listen, and invite your neighbors for coffee. Hit REC when the conversation cuts you, not to collect fights, to keep context. And when they take you to a room with gray carpet and a flag up front, don't take anger, take the tape. If it's the truth, life handles the rest. And sometimes, like that day, the judge hears every word, and the house ends up the way it always should have been. Hammers in order, chili on Sundays, and the rule my father taught me in the shop, the one that saved my hide that April. Measure twice, cut once, and if they film you to shrink you, press play on the rest of the story. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about the story in the comments. See you in the next one.